أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي ليس لأوليته ابتداء ولا لأزليته انقضاء، وانحصرت الأوصاف عن كنه معرفته، ورضعت عظمته العقول، والذي لا تواري عنه سماء سماء ولا أرض أرضا. ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على سيد البطحاء سيد المرسلين والأنبياء أبي القاسم محمد المصطفى.
اللهم صل على محمد
وعلى الجوهرة القدسية البتول العذراء سيدة النساء فاطمة الزهراء، وعلى بعلها أمير المؤمنين وبنيها الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
لا سيما على بقية الله وحجته الكبرى الذي بيمنه رزق الورى، وبوجوده ثبتت الأرض والسماء، ولولاه لصاخت الأرض بأهلها، واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من حين عداوتهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الإمام الرضا عليه الصلاة والسلام: أوثق عرى الإيمان الحب في الله والبغض في الله. صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Tabreek and congratulations to all of you and all the mu'mineen and mu'minat on the birth of our 8th Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida alayhi salatu wassalam. The Imam who is considered as Gharib al-Ghuraba, the one who was lonely and away from his watan, far away, taken forcibly by Ma'mun al-Rashid, la'natullahi alayh, far away from his home, away from his family, and there was no one from his family with him. And our 8th Imam is the Imam who got a lot of exposure according to the hikmat and wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and because of that reason we find that various aspects of his personality and huge bulk of the ahadith are available about from Imam Raza alayhi salam as compared to several other Imams from his lineage, for whom we have extremely less number of hadiths, like from his own son Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam, and his son Imam al-Naqi al-Hadi alayhi salam, and Imam al-Askari alayhi salam. We have very less number of ahadith narrated from all the 3 Imams. So they did not get the exposure by the community, with the community, in front of the community, as they deserved. And this exposure that Imam Raza alayhi salam got, he took the best benefit for spreading the kalimatullah. And this trip of Imam Raza alayhi salam from Medina to Khurasan, and this stay of the Imam in Khurasan was certainly full of barakat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the spread of Islam especially, and for the mu'mineen and mu'minat khususan who benefited from the presence of the Imam. Now the aspect which I wanted to mention, certainly we are going to have the celebration, as you all know, in this coming Sunday, and we have the guest speaker, Hujjul Islam Samahat al-Sheikh Hassan al-Habhab, who is coming from Dearborn, Detroit, inshallah, for the speech on the celebration of the Imam's birth, inshallah, on this Sunday. And I just want to mention just one aspect of the personality of the Imam. So the detailed program, inshallah, is already scheduled and is going to come, inshallah. In Islam and the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, we have been told that our love and hate, our hub and bughd, has to be based solely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for the sake of Allah. We are not supposed to love nobody or hate nobody for the sake of any other reason, and for the sake of Allah, that's the only reason, and that's the only justifiable reason why we are supposed to love and hate. So basically it's clear that we love Allah and those who stand for His cause, and we hate those who are the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the enemies of His representatives, the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Because of the fact that Allah has commanded us to do so, because of the fact that Prophet and Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam are the most perfect mazhar and reflection of Allah, and because of the fact that Prophet and Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam were not doing anything or not standing for anything other than the mashiyat and irada and will of Allah. So they didn't like nothing except what Allah likes, and they did not dislike anything except what Allah dislikes. So their likeness and dislikeness is nothing but the likeness and dislikeness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the reason that whoever stands for the love of Rasul and Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam is actually standing for Allah's love and Allah's hate. And this is why their love and hate is equal in its status with the love and hate of Allah. And we find when someone asked Imam Raza alayhi salam that this is one of those ahadith which is extremely fundamental in understanding the Islamic concept of hub and bughd, and the concept of jazb and dafa. Hub and bughd is a concept based on the fitrat and instinct of the creatures. It is something which is not only found in the human beings, that we love and hate, we get attracted towards certain things and repelled from certain things, we attract certain things to ourselves and reject certain things away from ourselves, we like certain things, we dislike certain things, we go for certain things, we do not want to go for certain other things. This concept, which is called jazb and daf when it comes to animals in the plantations, and the same thing is called hub and bughd, love and hate, when it comes to the humans. It's a concept based on the fitrat and nature. So not only the humans do that and are supposed to do that, but the animal kingdom is based on the same concept. They like things and they dislike things. They get attracted to things and repelled from other things. Isn't that right? And likewise the plantations. So existences are like this. All those existences that exist and survive and are living are based on the concept of hub and bugh. They are living because of their hub and bugh. Let me rephrase it like this. The alamat and sign of any existence to be called a living and hayy and zinda, living existence, is because of the fact it has love and hate. If any existence ceases to have the concept of love and hate, it is not a living existence. It is dead, because it doesn't have the love and hate. So if you want to know whether an existence is surviving and living and didn't die yet, this is one of the signs to discover. So our love and hate is natural. What Islam is trying to do is to channelize the love and hate according to the divine phenomena. So when we have to love and have to hate, then let's redirect our love concept towards Allah and redirect our hate concept towards Allah, not on any other foundation. And when we do that, we channelize our hub and bugh based on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's how we become eternally successful, because Allah's team is the winning team. Ala inna hizballahi huwal ghalibun. Isn't it right? We all want to be part of the winning team. So the key to win is to join the winning team. So if you love Allah and the ones whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, that's how you are on Allah's side. And the love of yours towards Allah and His beloved personalities is impossible to be proven unless and until you have already gone past through the stage of bugh. That means hating the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and those who are the enemies of the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt, the beloved servants of Allah. Through the bugh, we prove the love. Or the bugh fillah is the prerequisite and shart for the hub concept to be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in Ilmul Kalam we say that tabarri is ahead of tawalli. In Farsi we say tabarra. Isn't it right? In Arabic we say tawalli and tabarri. In Farsi we say tabarra and tawalla. So tabarra in Islam is ahead of tawalla. It's the same concept of hub and bugh. In Ilmul Kalam we use those terms of tawalli and tabarri. That means you disassociating from Allah's enemies and Allah's awliya, His beloved servants' enemies. That's first, before you claim that I love Allah and I am siding with His beloved personalities. So Imam Raza alayhi salam has said that awsaqu ural iman, the most the strongest grips or the handles of iman is that is loving for the sake of Allah and hating for the sake of Allah. That's the most strongest. That means the person who has, so we learn in light of this hadith, the person whose love and hate is based on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he has grabbed the iman so strong that his iman is not going to go away anywhere. So if you want to protect your iman in the strongest way, this is not through prayers, this is not through fasting, this is not through your khums and hijab and zakat and fitrah. If you want to protect your iman in the strongest way, it's through the fact that you make sure whenever you love somebody, you love it for the sake of Allah, and whenever you hate somebody, you hate it for the sake of Allah. That's how you are now holding the strongest handle of iman in your hands. So iman is not going to go away anywhere. In awsaqu ural iman al-hubbu fillah wal-bughdhu fillah. So if that was clear to 10,000 people, or in some narrations 8,000 people who were standing in front of Imam Raza alayhi salam in Nishapur, and he was crossing by the city of Nishapur, and 10,000 people came when they heard the news. Although Mahmud Rashid asked his officers, his people, his soldiers to take the Imam in the night from areas where there are Shias, followers of the Imam. Khorasan was full of the Shias, right? So from those areas where the Shias are residing, don't take the Imam in the daytime. Imam should be crossing those cities and villages in the night time, so nobody knows that the Imam is crossing by. So no one can stage a rebellion against Mahmud Rashid and his khuda, his deception that he is doing in the name of Ahlul Bayt, asking Imam Raza to become Waliul Ahad, isn't it right? Deceiving the simple-minded Busata, who are up till today, there are so many of the Muslimin who are deceived by saying that they justify their policy towards Taghut by using the thing that Imam Raza was also Waliul Ahad. Isn't it right? Up till today you find those ahmaq people who are available in Islamic Ummah who fail to understand. And I remember last year when we talked about Imam Raza on his birthday, I mentioned 6 dalil, 6 barahin, and I don't want to repeat what I already said. I mentioned 6 barahin to you, how our muhaqqiqeen and scholars have mentioned these 6 dalil, which are evidence that Imam Raza was forced to accept when he was threatened to be killed. He did not accept the Walayatul Ahad, becoming heir to the throne of Mahmud Rashid, unless he was threatened to death. And then he accepted that he would not be part of anything that Mahmud Rashid and his Nizam and his government does. So he is totally bari from everything of the government. On that condition, he accepted as being the Waliul Ahad when he was forced to death. And some people are justifying this thing for their personal harams and wrongs towards the Zayn. Day in and day out, they are doing the harams, and they want to justify their harams by misusing an incident of the history to justify their wrongs. So Imam Raza was crossing the city of Nishapur, and that's where 8,000 or 10,000 people showed up, and he mentioned that hadith which we call Silsilatul Zahab in Ilmul Hadith. That means the chain of gold, because we call it the chain of gold because all the narrators are Masumeen. Isn't it right? So there is no speck of a doubt about the authenticity of the chain of narrators. And when the chain of narrators is authentic, the contents is beyond any question. Isn't it right? Whatever is there in the hadith has to be authentic as well, because it's narrated by the Masumi alayhimus salam. There is no other rawi. So we call it Silsilatul Zahab. There are very few ahadith which are narrated in that fashion. Actually, this is the only hadith which is called Silsilatul Zahab in the entire Ilmul Hadith. There is no hadith other than this which is named by that. So, and these among these people were some of the very famous scholars of Ahlul Sunnah who were present in the crowd, and they requested the Imam alayhi salam to tell them at least some hadith from his grandfather. Isn't it right? So, أَتَرْحَلُ عَنَّا وَلَا تُحَدِّثُنَا بِحَدِيثٍ عَنْ جَدِّكَ يَبْنَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. So are you going to pass by, and you're not going to tell us any hadith from your grandfather? So that's where Imam mentioned that Silsilatul Zahab, which is, you all know the hadith, we have been discussing that already. But the point that I want to mention is that Imam alayhi salam, before he starts to mention the hadith that you already know, كلمة لا إله إلا الله حسني فمن دخل حسني أمن من عذابي. That the kalima of La ilaha illallah is my fortress. Allah said, whoever enters my fortress got protected, got secured from my punishment. So this hadith, before Imam Raza mentions that hadith, he says to the masses that don't torture Rasulullah about his Ahlul Bayt. That's the point which I want to mention tonight as we are discussing the concept of love and hate in Islam. So there are people in the Islamic Ummah who were reading the kalima of Tawheed and Risalat, but they are still torturing, they are causing aziyat for Ahlul Bayt, for Imam Raza alayhi salam. Isn't it right? So we find that this is a shame for the Islamic Ummah, that they fail to understand that the hubb and bughd is not for the sake of any other reason other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and loving the awliya Allah, tuwali awliya Allah wa tu'adi a'da Allah wa takunu ma'as sadiqin kama amarak Allah. The hadith says that you love the beloved servants of Allah and you hold the enemies of Allah to be your enemies, and you get along with the sadiqeen the way Allah has commanded you. So basically, in the light of this hadith, we learn that this is the entire summary of the religion of Islam. If somebody asks you what Islam stands for, if you want to define the policy of Islam in a nutshell, this is the policy of Islam in a nutshell, that you love the beloved servants of Allah, and you hold the enemies of Allah to be your enemies, and you get along in your personal policies in life and your practices, you get along with the Sadiqeen. Sadiqeen are the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين. The Quran has commanded to the mu'mineen that they have the taqwa of Allah and they be with the sadiqeen. So we are not supposed to hate the fellow mu'mineen. This is not in Islam. In Islamic morality, there is no concept of adawatul mu'mineen. If you look at the ilm al-akhlaq, you never find anywhere Islam has taught us to have adawat and bughd and hatred towards our mu'min brothers and sisters. We can always have disagreements, that's natural, isn't it right? But disagreements need to be resolved ASAP. Before even 3 days pass by, isn't it right? We should resolve our disagreements. Our disagreements should not cause us to break away from each other, especially our relatives. Our disagreements should not cause us to stop saying salam on each other. Our disagreements should not be left unresolved so they get converted into dhaghina and hiqd and kina. In Farsi we say kina, hatred which is deep entrenched in your heart. Just like the Aus and Khazraj, the two tribes of Medina used to have, isn't it right? Fighting battles for nonsense reasons or very small reasons, or reasons which were Islamically supposed to be resolved without the war. Isn't it right? Fighting battle for more than, some of the battles lasted for more than 100 years. Some histories say 120 years. So this kind of behavior is not in Islam, because we find the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, Ya Ali, ma karihtahu li nafsika fakrahu li ghayrik. O Ali, whatever you dislike for yourself, dislike it for others for others. So anyone other than you. That means you have the same policy for others, the way you dislike something for yourself, dislike the same thing for the others. And he says, وَمَا أَحْبَبْتَهُ لِنَفْسِكَ فَأَحِبَّهُ لِأَخِيكَ. Whatever you love for yourself, love it for your brother. This is such a great principle There are some sects of Islam, some sects and religion that call it a golden principle, isn't it right? Although the way it is interpreted in their teachings is lesser of the highness in contents as it is narrated in the Islamic teachings, because in Islamic teachings our Prophet is teaching us to not only basically do to others what you like them to do to you. That's very lesser as compared to in highness to this statement. Because here in the statement of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's not just doing, but even love for others. That's way higher than doing. Love for others what you love for yourself. And then Prophet said, Takun adilan. That means if you do that, you will be adil. So adalat in the proper sense is defined that you love and hate the way you love and hate for yourself, things that you like for yourself, things that you dislike for yourself, obviously which is based for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the same way we behave towards others. تكون عادلا في حكمك, you will be adil in your hukum, muqsatan fi adlika, and you will have the qist in your justice, and muhibban fi ahli sama, you will be a person who is among the eyes of the dwellers of the heaven. Basically, a person will become beloved. That's what we learn in the light of the hadith. Mawdudan fi sudur ahl al-ard, you will be beloved in the eyes, in the hearts of the dwellers of earth. احفظ وصيتي inshallah. So protect my wasiyat inshallah. So another hadith from the Prophet says, اعدل الناس أعدل الناس من رضي للناس ما يرضى لنفسه وكره لهم ما يكره لنفسه. The most just of all the people is the one who is radi and pleased towards the people with what he is radi and pleased about himself. And he dislikes for the people what he dislikes for himself. Anything that you don't like for yourself, isn't it right? You're not going to be pleased about that thing to be done towards others. This applies in everything of our life. Our talk, our behavior, our interaction, our dresses, our food, isn't it right? You want to offer food to somebody. Thing that you dislike for yourself, you're not supposed to offer to others. Offer to others what they like. A, you offer to them what you like, or B, offer to them what they like. Is it right? This is what is called justice and morality. Likewise, if you want to give the clothes to somebody, so don't give the clothes that you dislike for yourself. Like I said, this is applicable in every aspect of human life. If we behave towards others the way we like them, what we love for ourselves, and what we dislike for ourselves, we don't do for them, this is how we are going to maintain our adl. It's very difficult to do that. It's very difficult to do this kind of insaf and fairness, because that's where the people, we find shaitan comes in and furnishes the ta'wilat and tawjihat and excuses to justify one way or the other. That's okay for me to do that, but for others it's okay, we can do it in a different way. This is what the people lack. Why they, in the social interactions, when we live in a society, you find some people don't earn the respect and love in the eyes of others. Others are not ready to get along with them. Some people are not ready to get along with some other people. One of the reasons is that a person, one of the possible reasons is that a person doesn't love for others what he loves for himself. When we talk about others, for example, if we are sitting in a gathering, we are discussing about others. So if others were discussing about you in the same words and in the same phrases, in the same context, in front of the similar audience, would you like it for yourself to be somebody else discussing about you like this? If you don't like it, then don't talk about others in the same way. أحبوا للناس ما تحبون لأنفسكم. So we find that people have not gone past the stage of this level of adalat to apply it on themselves, and Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam have been applying this principle in the best way. So they used to love for others what they love for themselves. So the narration says that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam used to give sugar as sadaqah. The narration says, and when somebody asks him, why do you give sugar? And he replies back, because, I like it. So he is giving the sadaqah from things that he like, isn't it right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded the same thing, أنفقوا لن تنالوا البر حتى تنفقوا مما تحبون. So we are supposed to give away from what we love. This is the concept of loving and hating. So we love for others what we love for ourselves. Another hadith from Amir Mu'min alayhi salam says, Al-insafu yarfa'ul khilaf. Doing justice is going to remove the difference. Why the difference is surviving in the society? Because I didn't do justice to others. The way I want to treat myself, I'm treating in a different way, and when I treat others, I treat in a different way. The difference is not going to be removed in the society. No matter how much on the surface you try to address the issue, it is going to remain in the hearts of the people, and the ikhtilaf is not going to be removed. Al-insaf yarfa'ul khilaf wa yujibul ihtilaf. It's the fairness and justice that's going to remove the difference and bring about the loving relationship. And another hadith says that ansif al-nasa, ansaf al-nasi man ansafa min nafsihi bighayri hakimin alayh. The most fair person is the one who exercises fairness towards himself, from himself, without any judge against him. And without me showing up in front of the judge, I am ready to do justice that much, that I apply this principle on myself, and I do towards the people what I do for myself, on my own, without showing up in front of a judge. I am precisely able to apply that kind of justice against my own self. This person is the most fair of all the people. So Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam have been applying the concept of love and hate perfectly, and this is why we find that anyone who opposes them is actually not their enemy, is the enemy of Allah. And we take the enemies of Ahlul Bayt to be enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not just their enemies only. Because they always used to consider Allah in their minds. Isn't that right? So anybody who loves the Ahlul Bayt is actually anyone who's the mahbub and beloved of Ahlul Bayt is the person who was actually beloved in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the reasons why we find our dua is not mustajab. Some people even go to Karbala, where our dua is mustajab in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is ijabat al-dua tahta qubbatihi. One of the mukhtasat of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, you do your dua under the dome and it's accepted. Isn't it right? But some people go there under the dome and still not accepted. Isn't it right? or go to Karbala, that their du'as are still not accepted. We must understand that Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam are adil. So they cannot go against the principles of Allah. For those people who have violated the hukukun nas, they cannot expect the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam to surpass the divine principles. They are always going to go according to the principles of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Allah is not pleased with this person, why would they be pleased with this person? Because their hub and boast is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah has already defined, Imam Hussain alayhi salam has already mentioned in his Sharia, in his Shara, what is the principles, what are we supposed to do? If we are not listening to the predefined principles of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not going to work. Unless if somebody has some of those special a'mal, as-salihah, which earns high level of shafa'at. Unless if somebody has performed such a great services for Ahlul Bayt and the walayat of Ahlul Bayt that he deserves the tawajjuh no matter what. Unless if somebody deserves the fadl from Ahlul Bayt and the lutf from Ahlul Bayt and himself, that's a different story. But for those people who don't deserve the lutf and fadl and haven't performed those extraordinary services for the walayat of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, they cannot expect. And that's the reason why, that's one of the possible reasons why the du'as are not accepted. So the hub and bull is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes their enemies seriously and their lovers who love the Ahlul Bayt seriously. So if we even start hating the awliya and the lovers of Ahlul Bayt, we are now opposing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So to that extent, this love and hate goes beyond, so much beyond, that even the lovers of Ahlul Bayt, even the lovers of Ahlul Bayt are included in that hukum. And so much far away that we find that, and this hadith, and I'm going to come to the end after that inshallah. This hadith has been narrated in Riyadh al-Salikin, which is the first sharh of As-Sahifat al-Sajjadiyya. Riyadh al-Salikin is one of not only the first sharh, but one of the best of the shuruh and interpretations and descriptive books about the Sahifa al-Sajjadiyya. And in the Riyadh al-Salikin, the author has mentioned, Ayatullah Sayyid Ali Khan rahmatullah alayhi, he had mentioned 5 ahadith in the Muqaddimah, and this is one of those precious 5 hadiths in the Muqaddimah, which he is part of the Silsilatul Sanad. That means he heard it from his father, and his mashayikh, and they learned from their mashayikh, and so on till it reaches Rasulullah. So he himself is the rawi of that hadith. This is called from Ab and Jad. We call this kind of ahadith as Silsilatul Aba in Ilm al-Hadith. Those narrations which are narrated from you tell it from your father, and your father heard it from his father, and so on from Rasulullah. This kind of hadith is called Silsilatul Aba. And these 5 ahadiths that he mentioned in his sharh are the longest of the ahadiths of Silsilatul Aba in entire Ilm al-Hadith. Because in this silsila there are 27 Ab and Jad, 27 fathers and sons in the silsila. And we find Shaheed As-Sani rahmatullah alayhi has mentioned some of the narrations of Silsilatul Aba, which has only 14 Ab and Jad. So these are very precious 5 hadiths that he mentioned in the Muqaddimah of Riyadh al-Salikin, the oldest and Aqdam al-Shuruh, oldest Sharh of Sahifa al-Sajjadiyya. And that's where he says this hadith from, from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, that نحن بنو عبد المطلب ما أعدانا بيت إلا وقد خرب ولا أعوان كلب إلا وقد جرب. We, the children of Abdul Muttalib, Prophet said, no one considered us, that means no one in the humanity considered us as his enemy, except except no household considered us, no house considered us to be their enemy, except that the house got devastated. So any house that considered the Prophet to be his enemy, that house is destroyed. And وَلَا أَعْوَانَ كَلْبٌ إِلَّا وَقَدْ جَرِبَ, and there is no dog that barks upon us except that it will end up in that illness of the dog. And then Prophet said, وَمَنْ لَمْ يُصَدِّقْ فَمَنْ لَمْ يُصَدِّقْ فَلْيُجَرِّبْ. Whoever does not certify, that means whoever does not accept what I said, then you should try it. You try doing that and you will see what happens to you. So this kind of behavior that Allah does towards the houses that considers the Prophet to be their enemy. Unfortunately, we are witnessing this film that was made to insult the Holy Prophet intentionally and knowingly, is it right? And then propagated, and we find those supporters who have been supporting this film. And we in Islam proudly condemn not only the one who made the film, but also those Zionists who financed the film, and those Zionist media and those Zionist administrations who have been supportive of that film in the name of the freedom of speech, which is never absolute in any Western country. And today I got the news from BBC.com that that there was another issue taking place about another, a Christian nun was depicted in a way which was not acceptable to the Roman Catholic Church, and that kind of freedom of speech was not there. So now they're talking about removal of that picture of that nun, which was presented in a way which is against the Catholic value system. Isn't it right? So, and ironically, we find all this is happening in the same time when the same people, the same administrations have been supporting the insult of the Holy Prophet in the name of freedom of speech, but they're still not allowing their own royals and the royal family members to their photos to be published in their magazines. Isn't that right? Look at the hypocrisy and bias and the hatred towards Islam and the Holy Prophet, despite the fact that Islam has been propagating respect towards them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala respect towards all the neighbors and Christians and Jews and Hindus, whatever. Our religion is teaching us to respect all of our neighbors and treat them with our morals and akhlaq. Despite this policy of Islam, you find that what we are receiving from them is nothing but hate. We definitely condemn in the strongest words this policy of the West and this policy of the makers of the film and the financiers and the supporters of the film. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of us to understand and to practice the ma'arif of Quran and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين واخذل الكفار والمنافقين. اللهم انصر من نصر الدين واخذل من خذل المسلمين. اللهم انصر واحفظ وأيد علماءنا الربانيين ومراجعنا الربانيين، لا سيما الولي الفقيه قائد المسلمين. اللهم انصر جيوش المسلمين وعساكر الموحدين. اللهم فك عن الأسراء المسلمين. اللهم وفقنا لما تحب وترضى، وعجل في فرج مولانا صاحب الزمان، واجعلنا من أنصاره وأشياعه وأتباعه وأعوانه بجاه محمد وآله الطاهرين.